him here with a cell phone and a truck.
That's exactly right. All right.
We don't ever offer training.
Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Okay, so what we're going to get started with this morning is financial literacy. Y'all tell me what you think that is. What do you think financial literacy is?
I would say it has to do with finances, maybe money.
Money, okay.
How to handle it wisely.
How to handle it wisely. That's a big part of it. So financial literacy, you can break up the word. Financial is, of course, anything money related. And literacy is the ability to read or understand. So it's understanding your money. Things like budgeting, tracking your expenses, savings. It goes further than that into 401ks, Roth IRAs, preparing for retirement. We're not going to really get into that, but we are going to talk about credit, which is also a factor in financial literacy. So, before we start talking about creating a budget, let's talk about this idea of needs versus wants. So, y'all tell me what you think a need is.
Food.
Food is a need.
Cell phones.
I think in this day and age, a cell phone is a need because you got to have communication. So typically you can get a cell phone now cheaper than a landline. When I've actually seen landlines billed on people's spectrum bills, that type of thing, they are more expensive than cell phones are. And of course you also have the option with cell phones. They have the Obama phones, people call them that, the Assurance wireless phones, and they are free. So if you want to eliminate that cell phone bill, you can always go with applying for one of those free phones. Other things that are needs?
Roof over your head.
Roof over your head. That's probably the most important one.
Groceries.
Groceries, so food.
Utilities.
Utilities, that is a big one. That is a big one. It does actually get cold enough in our area where it can be really a danger to your health if you do not have heating and cooling. Anything else you can think of that's a need? If you have kids, childcare.
Good one.
What about transportation? That's a big one in Catawba County. That's a really big need in Catawba County. If you live in Hickory, you have a fighting chance of using public transportation. If you're out in the county, there really is no public transportation available. So a vehicle, car insurance, gas, all things that are likely needs. What about wants? What are some things that are a want?
Nails.
Yeah. Any type of getting your hair done, getting your nails done, all of those things are a want. Any other thoughts?
Shopping.
Shopping, yeah. So you need basic clothing for sure. But new clothes just because you like them. New shoes just because you think they'll go nicely with that outfit that you have. Those things are wants. I also have just kind of an across the board. If you bought it at a convenience store or a gas station and it wasn't gas, it was a want. There's nothing inside convenience stores that are needs. You got lottery tickets, tobacco, alcohol, food in there, but food, it's going to be junk and you're going to have paid more for it if you bought it at a convenience store. So those are going to be wants. So when we're talking about creating a budget, and in this situation, we're going to talk about living paycheck to paycheck. We're going to talk about being in a crisis situation. So at this point, you want zero in want spending. When you take a look at your budget, you're only going to account for things that are absolutely necessities. And then anything that you may have left over, that's where you're going to create the plan for savings. So in talking about creating a budget, what's the first thing that you need to know? And this is the budget worksheet. And this will be available in your packet. You want to take a look at this. This will help you out. Okay, what do you need to know first when you're creating? Income, exactly. And what is income?
Money being brought into the household.
Okay, so your earned income, if you're working, it could be Social Security, it could be disability payments, it could be child support. What about food stamps? Is that income?
Yes.
If you lived in income-based housing and you're on a Section 8 voucher, is that income?
Yes.
If you come here and you get assistance with something like SIP or LEAP, which is the crisis funding, or the credit towards your heating source, is that income?
Yes.
It is. Any type of cash or non-cash benefit that you have coming in is going to be income. So that's going to be the first thing that you're going to list is your income. And you're also going to take into account how you get paid and how often you get paid. So some people, for example, on Social Security, they know exactly what day they're going to get paid. They know exactly what amount it's going to be. To me, I think it's easier to plan a budget that way. But then people that work hourly, you're going to have to, when you're planning a budget out, when you're taking a look at the whole month, you're going to have to take into account, is there a reason your hours might get reduced? Can you expect that you'll be at work 40 hours a week? Exactly what is that paycheck going to look like so that you can plan your budget? So you're going to put your income first. And you're going to put based on how many times you get paid in the month, you're going to anticipate that. Now, what's the next thing you need to know when you're creating a budget?
Necessary expenses.
Necessary expenses, exactly. So like we talked about before, we're not going to do any want spending when we're planning this budget. Want to tighten up the budget, make sure that you are only spending money on things that are necessities right now. With then, of course, the goal being handling all those expenses and creating a savings plan. So the next thing you are going to need to know is what are your necessary expenses. So we talked about those things that are your needs, like a roof over your head. So you're going to account for your rent or your mortgage. You're going to take account into your utilities. Do you have to pay for water? Yes or no? Are you paying for electricity? Yes or no? Do you possibly have natural gas you also have to pay for? Now, what I would recommend is to take into account first all of your bills. So that's going to be something that you get a monthly bill for. Some of those are going to be fixed. They're going to be things that you can expect that they will be the same amount every month, and you can go ahead and write those down. Then there are things that go up and down, right? We don't necessarily know what our electricity bill is going to look like each month. So there's going to be a lot of factors that play into that. For example, if you're heating your house with electricity, when it gets really cold, your bill is going to get higher. If you're cooling your house with electricity, when it gets really hot, your bill is going to be higher. So you're going to have to anticipate those things. If you're uncertain what a typical bill looks like in a particular time period, you can actually call your utility company and find out what a typical bill is going to look like in whatever month it is that you're preparing for. So you're going to take into account all of those bills. Then, once you see what all of your bills cost, then you can see what you have left over for things that are everyday expenses. You can figure out how much you have left for things like your gas, for things like your groceries, things that you need to know what you have left to spend, but they are not necessarily bills. So you're going to take those into account. So when you're planning the budget, is this something you need to do at the beginning of the month, middle of the month? When do you think you should be taking into account your budget?
Before you get paid?
Before you get paid is an excellent way to do it. Absolutely, before you get paid. And I would recommend at the beginning of every month, you take into account what all your expenses and all your bills are going to be so you can plan it out. So you have an idea of what you're going to need to bring in to cover your expenses and when each bill is due. Keeping up with those things, very important. Okay, so then you want to total up how much income do you have coming in and what are all the expenses that you're anticipating. Then you want to get a plan for savings. Now, I would recommend when you first start creating a budget and creating a savings goal that you establish a low dollar amount. I would aim to save some $10, $20 the first time that you try and create a savings plan. Now, the reason that I recommend this is that if you don't have practice with doing budgets and you don't have practice with savings, it can be hard, it can be a difficult thing to figure out how to create a savings plan. And I want you to set a goal that is achievable for you. If you set the bar really high, and you don't achieve that goal, you're likely to come up with the idea, I can't save any money, and just throw the goal out the window. But if you set a goal that is achievable for you, something around $10 or $20 a month, then when you are successful in being able to do that, you're more likely to continue doing it. Make sense? Okay, so let's talk about, this is something that I hear in here a lot. What do you do if you take a look at all of your expenses and your income is lower than your expenses? What do you do in that situation?
Try to find ways to cut the expenses.
Absolutely, trying to find ways to cut expenses. So you got to figure out how to reduce what you're spending on. And that may be, let me give you some examples. That may be finding more affordable housing. You may determine, hey, this is a huge chunk of my income coming in. I'm spending on rent. Let me take a look and see if there's anywhere that I can find a place to live that is less expensive than this. Maybe it would be applying for income-based housing, where your rent will be based off your income. What are some other ways, what are some other areas that you can look to save money?
Oh, non-necessities.
Definitely cutting out all of those non-necessities.
Looking at your spectrum bill.
Looking at your spectrum bill. That's a good one. And we are going to take a look at spending leaks in just a few minutes. And we'll talk about how to determine if there are places that you are spending money that may be things that are not needs. Cable bill is going to be one of the biggest glaring spending leaks that we see. Is cable a necessity? Do you need cable?
I mean, I like my shows.
But you
I'll
don't
miss
need
my
it, right?
Episodes, but no, you don't need it.
You don't need it.
Internet is that is a necessity now with children in school.
I agree with you there. But there is ways to even reduce that. Spectrum will not come out and tell you, but they do have lower cost internet that you can apply for. I think their lowest rate is around $30. And if you call them, they're not going to come out and say, hey, you might qualify for this cheaper internet. But if you ask them to apply for it, they have to give you the opportunity. The other option in reducing costs as far as internet goes is there is low cost internet through all the major cell phone providers. You can actually go to a website called everyoneon.org and you can apply for that low cost internet. But you can also call any of the major cell phone providers and tell them that you would like to apply for their SafeLink internet, and that usually runs about $10 to $15 a month. So that's significantly less than around $70, which is what Spectrum charges.
Being on disability, I love watching my TV shows, but DirecTV and all the name brand TV people are so expensive. Are there any options where I can keep television but not have to pay so much?
I think so. You have a digital antenna, and you can actually get a surprising number of channels on the digital antenna. I get all the major networks on my digital antenna at the house, and you can get one for about $20. You'll get a bunch of channels that you've never heard of, but it's something to watch. And then the other option would be streaming. So if you have a smart TV, you can use any of the different applications to stream TV. If you don't have a smart TV, you can use a Fire Stick or a Roku. And a Roku will actually attach to an old TV. You don't even have to have a HDMI input in your TV to use a Roku. The original Roku one has the red, yellow, and white plugs that will actually go in the back. And you can literally free try. If you do the free trials on all the different streaming services, you could probably watch TV realistically for 2 years without ever paying anything. Just make sure that you cancel it before your free trial is over. And then you have the other, Roku TV is free. If you have a Roku, there's all kinds of movies and stuff that are available that are free of charge on the Roku. And they have like IMDb too. You have to watch a couple of commercials here and there, but there's a lot of free TV on there as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so any other things that we can reduce costs?
We can look at expenditures for groceries.
Mm-hmm.
If you will make out menus and buy your groceries based on that.
Absolutely, and we will take a look in a different section of this class at exactly how to plan that, how to save money when you shop. I got one on my mind that y'all haven't come up with yet. What about your utilities? Can you reduce your utility cost?
Turn the lights off.
Turning the lights off. That's a big one. And we're going to talk specifically about saving money on your electricity and in a different session. But just the temperature that you keep your house dramatically affects your utility bills. So you want to take into account, of course, that you are comfortable, that it's not miserable to be in your house because it's either so hot or so cold. But you also want to see what the cost is going to be, what the savings would be, and how much you're paying to keep your house at a certain temperature. So come up with some ideas, right? We figured out some ways that we can reduce costs. Another one, car insurance, for example. Shop around, make sure that you've got the lowest rate for car insurance. So we've come up with a lot of different ways to reduce costs. So that's what you want to do if you take a look and your income is less than your expenses. Now then you also have the option of seeing if you can increase wages. If you could get potentially some education, which we will talk about later, that might allow you to make more money. Something else that comes up in here a lot is I'm in this situation because I lost my job. I don't have any income. How am I supposed to create a budget? And should I create a budget? What do y'all think? Should you create a budget if you don't have any income?
For what you do have coming in, you should keep track of whatever money you may have been able to make.
Absolutely, and anything that you have left over from your last paycheck, any savings you may have, you're going to have to figure out how you're going to most effectively use that. So I would say first you do need to create a budget, because as you're looking for work, you need to know how much income is going to be required for you to pay all of those bills. The other thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to need to get a plan. Because what's the thing that's going to keep happening whether you've got any money coming in or not?
Bills, bills, bills.
That's right. You're still going to be expected to pay your bills. And you're going to need to get a plan for that. So you want to take a look and figure out what all of the bills you have coming in are and which ones you're going to prioritize. Some of these bills, some of these companies, some of these people may be willing to work with you. They know what your situation is, and they're going to give you some extra time. For example, some landlords will give you a little bit of extra time. You've always been a good tenant. They're not going to run to court and evict you on the 10th because you haven't paid your rent. They're going to work with you. Other landlords are not going to work with you, and if they don't have the rent by the 10th, they are going to evict you. So you need to get a plan. You need to figure out where you have some leeway and where you don't, so that you can allocate any resources that you have towards the things that are most important at the time. And then you also want to get a plan for if you're going to need help. What things are you going to ask for help? Which one of those items are you going to come and say, hey, I have this bill that's due. It's a necessity. I can't pay it and I need help with it. For example, if you came in here one day and you said, I need rent, I need car repairs, I need help with my light bill, I need help with water and food. Are we going to be able to do all of those things?
Probably not.
We're probably not going to be able to do all of those things. So you want to prioritize which things you are asking for help with, because it is going to be something where we're likely not going to be able to help with all those things at one time in one day. So you want to prioritize them, figure out what is an absolute necessity and what you're going to ask for help with. So in talking about reducing expenses, let's talk about finding spending leaks. Do y'all know what a spending leak might be? Any thoughts? No idea?
You're spending money and not even realizing you're spending it.
That's typically where a spending leak is. It's typically going to be something that you're not acknowledging was real costly, and when you add it up over a month, you realize that a lot of money was actually spent on things that were not necessities. Absolutely, good example there. So here's how you're going to find your spending leaks. You'll see in your packet the expense tracking log. This will be behind your budget. You're going to write down every cent that you spend. And it's important that no matter how small of an expenditure it was, that you write it down, because it's going to be those things that add up over the month that you don't realize, and those are called spending leaks. So it's gonna be anything that was not a necessity that you spent money on. We talked about already, the biggest glaring one that I see is usually a cable bill. And a lot of times that's $120 up to $200 a month. It's just being wasted. It's being wasted. It's not a necessity. But typically, these are going to be smaller things that you don't even realize that you're doing. So I'm going to use my example of convenience store for spending leaks. I'm going to give you a personal example of how I found a spending leak and how serious it was. So I would go to the gas station almost every single day of my life and buy a Red Bull. Do y'all know what a Red Bull costs? They're around $3 for one of the small cans. I would justify it to myself. It was just $3. I could usually find that and change in the car, and I would go in and I would spend that $3, and I would convince myself that it was a necessity, that I needed that Red Bull because I needed the caffeine. I still had stuff to do left in my day. I was tired, and I was going to need that Red Bull to get me from point A to point B. Didn't seem like that much money, $3 a day. But say you do that every day, and I'm going to show you how to do the math. Say you do that every day. So if you spend $3 a day, how many days do we got in a typical month? 30. So you're going to multiply it times 30, because I did it 30 times. That's $90 in a month. So what felt like a little bit of money every day and I was justifying is actually a whole lot of money. So say I kept this behavior up, and I'm going to admit that I did keep this behavior up for a good long period. If I got $90 and I'm doing that, got 12 months in the year, right? Multiply it times 12. $1,080 in a year spent on Red Bull. Huge waste of money. That is a very large savings account. That is a bill that I might not have been priorly able to pay. That's a vacation. You could do a lot with that amount of money. So as you are taking a look, and you may not find any as bad as my spending leak was, but as you are writing down your expenses, you want to go through and you want to count the number of times that you've had these little expenditures and figure out exactly how much money you could have saved. Another one that I see people having pretty serious spending leaks is tobacco. So it may be that you determine that you're not going to completely cut this out of your life, but you can at least find ways to reduce the cost. So I'll give you an example here with the Red Bull. I still drink a ton of caffeine, but I can get coffee for free at work. And then my other alternative is that I carry some little drops that have caffeine in them. It's about $3 and there's 40 some drops. So for $3, I've got essentially 40 Red Bulls, and it's only costing me a couple of cents each time that I need that caffeine instead of running into the gas station and buying a Red Bull. When y'all think about your own lives, can you think about any spending leaks that you may have?
I guess my morning cups of coffee on my way to work.
You think? You think? I think I see you with one of those almost every single day. Add them up. Add them up. Okay, so do y'all have any questions about tracking expenses, creating a budget? Any thoughts? Anything you need more information on?
If so, is there a way that I can ask questions or get in touch with you if after this session I have more questions?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can give me a call at 828-465-1702, and I can answer any of those questions, and any of the other case managers can as well. You can also set up an appointment to come into the office if you'd like to take a look at any of this material on an individual level. We're all more than willing and capable of creating a budget with you. Budgets can be intimidating. They absolutely are intimidating, and they can be hard to do the first time. The more you practice it, the better you will get at it. So if you would like to come in and have us create a budget with you, we'd be more than happy to do that also.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you, ladies, and we will move on to the next section.